Hello and welcome to the third module in our growth hacking course, Data and Analytics. In this module, the learning objective is to understand a website analytics dashboard and be able to report on your learnings. And for you to show me that you've learned this, the project for this module is to get Google Analytics certification, which looks great on a LinkedIn profile, and to read and assess a Google Analytics dashboard. Now, the video content for this module is a bit shorter than others because there's a lot more video to come in the Google Analytics certification. So in this video, we're going to dive into it all. A data overview, a web analytics overview. I'll talk through how to tell if something is working. I like to start with this quote, "In God we trust, all others must bring data." As you get further along in your careers, you'll find that conversations with stakeholders, with managers, and with bosses, data tends to be the winner. And no need to fear, there's not a lot of math required in this. Data and analytics is a different discipline altogether than math. So if math scares you off, no need to fear in this module. Now, let's review some of the growth hacking concepts that we started with. So what is marketing? Well, put simply, marketing is connecting your company with your customers. We talked about the three different buckets within marketing. We have brand marketing, which covers who you are, product marketing, which covers what you sell, and growth marketing, which talks about how you sell it. And there's several different elements within growth marketing. First off, growth marketing touches all the different ways you can grow your company. Some of the hallmarks of growth are rapid experimentation and low-cost alternatives. The idea with growth marketing is that you're building and engaging your entire user base, from folks who are just hearing about you to folks who are buying from you for the fifth or sixth time. And then with growth marketing, you're constantly trying to learn and improve. And in order to learn and improve, you must measure, measure, measure. This leads us to the six-step growth machine. This loop begins with brainstorming ideas, coming up with hypotheses on what could move the needle for your company. Then you prioritize those ideas, you test those ideas, you analyze the data from those ideas, and you iterate to improve and start the loop again. And of course, we'll be spending some time specifically on that analyze step today. So let's begin with the data overview. Pause for a moment and consider your social media profile. Let's say your Instagram profile or your Twitter handle. What types of data can you collect from a tweet or a post? I'm sure a lot of data points come to mind. It could be likes, it could be clicks, it could be replies, it could be impressions, it could be reach, it could be a person saying that they love it, it could be virality. There's so many different signals within social media itself on what tends to be taking off. Now think about an event that you might hold. So we went from a digital experience to an offline experience. What types of data could you collect from an event? It's a bit trickier, but the data is there. What are the most obvious ones? You could track the number of attendees. You could run some sort of satisfaction survey to see how well the event went. You could collect email addresses. You could tie those email addresses into signups and purchases later on to see how effective the event was. So the more you think about it, there's data everywhere, both on digital platforms like social media and with some offline marketing, like event marketing. And again, as you're analyzing all these different things, be sure you filter it back into your growth loop. Analyze, which then leads to iterations, which allows you to brainstorm and hypothesize brand new tests to try. Now let's dive into web analytics in particular. So this is a map of all the different analytics tools that exist in the marketing landscape. There are a ton of them. And you may not be able to see this unless you zoom really deeply into the video. But right in the middle, right off center to the middle, is a section for web, mobile, and commerce tools. And within that section is Google Analytics. So Google Analytics represents one of thousands of different ways to analyze your marketing data. And it's one of the biggest ways. So Google Analytics, great for website and mobile traffic, but we've also started to see some Google Analytics copycats. Fathom Analytics, for instance, is one of those. Both different tools will tell you all about your traffic to your site, the users, the sessions, the bounce rate, the average time on site. Google Analytics is ubiquitous. It's free. It's on almost every website imaginable. But then sites like Fathom Analytics come to fill this void, not tracking as much information, being a bit more user-friendly and intuitive. So there's a huge market for analytics, especially marketing analytics today. So let's dive deeper into web analytics in particular, looking at some of the things that Google Analytics and sites like Fathom Analytics can show us and tell us. So you think about your website. What can web analytics answer for you? The list is quite long, so here's just a few of the questions that it can answer. Very obviously, how many people visit my website? Maybe where those visitors live. How is mobile performing versus desktop? Which websites send traffic to my website? Which marketing tactics are driving the most traffic to my site? Which pages on my site are the most popular? How many visitors have I converted into leads or customers? Where did those converting visitors come from and go on the website? How can I improve the speed of my website? What blog content do visitors like most, and much, much more? Pretty much anything imaginable you can find out through your web analytics about your users. Now, I wanted to show you an example of a Google Analytics dashboard. This is a live dashboard from Google's merchandise store. So all these stats are real and true. So Google Analytics gives you this overview of all the different behavior happening on your website at a time. So we can see from this blue box here, there's 19 people actively looking at the site right now. In the past 28 days, 62,000 people have visited the Google merch store, and the store has made $54,000. Of those 62,000 visitors, a little less than 1% have converted into purchases. We can change the time frame here to see what things look like today, yesterday, or even last week. And there's so many different ways to slice and dice this data. As you drill down further, you can see traffic channels, sources and medium, referrals, how well users retain or come back over time, how active users trend over time, what time of day users visit, where they visit from, top devices, and the list goes on and on. You'll get quite a taste of this as you dive into the Google Analytics certifications in the project for this module. And Google Analytics being so central to marketing, being certified with Google Analytics will be a great step for you to further yourself in your career. Now, within Google Analytics, you're likely to learn this in the certifications. There's 3 big buckets that are useful to know: audience, acquisition, and behavior. And when you think about these 3, you can think of audience as who are the people visiting my site? What are some of the demographics? Where do they come from? What are they landing on? Acquisition is how they arrive at your site. So what sources brought them to your site? Was it a referral link? Was it email? Was it social? Was it a Google search? And then behavior is what happens to the audience once it arrives at your site. How long do they spend on your site? What pages do they visit next? Do they convert into a sale or a sign up? So as you're going through your certification in this project, think about audience, acquisition, and behavior, and make sure you get a good grasp of how those 3 fit together. So a bit of theory before we wrap up, and how to tell what's working in your analytics. This is a popular graph that was, I believe, started from Donald Rumsfeld, a quote from him about known and unknown. So of this 2x2 matrix, there are things that are known, unknown. So we know that we don't know them. This is often the data that we want to track, but we can't currently track it. And there are known knowns, things we know that we know. And this is the data that we're currently tracking. There's the unknown known. And this is how much of our traffic is real. And then there's the unknown unknown. We don't even know that we don't know it. This is all the different analyses and experiments that we can do when multiple sources are combined from one place. So just understanding that there are things we don't even know we don't know. There are things we know we don't know. There are things we don't know we know. There are things that we know we know. There's so many different aspects and slices of data to understand. One way that I like to think about this is 4 different questions as you're thinking about planning and researching into the analytics that you're exploring. So one of them is totals versus rates. And with this one, you can think of totals as the sum of everything, and rates as the sum of everything divided by the number of occurrences. And where it gets a bit tricky is when you think about totals as, let's say on social media, you have one Instagram post that gets 5,000 likes, and your other 10 get 5 likes. Well, if you total everything up, it's going to look like you have 5,000 plus likes. You might think that every post is going to be a winner. When you look at it as a rate, likes per post, the rate is much closer to 5, especially when you kick out the outliers. So totals can be a bit deceiving, which is why it's always best to revert to rates. The next one is leading versus lagging. And a leading indicator is something that is a predictive measurement. So for example, the percentage of people wearing hard hats on a building site. Then a lagging indicator is an output measurement. So the number of accidents on a building site would be a lagging safety indicator. With lagging indicators, they're easy to measure, but they're hard to move. So whenever possible, look for those leading indicators, the things that you can move and that will influence the bigger lagging indicators later on. Then the last 2 elements to think of is a North Star metric. This is a single metric that drives the primary outcome you want to achieve for your business. Oftentimes it may be revenue. Sometimes if you have a different goal in mind, it could be new user acquisition. It could be traffic to your site. It could be Instagram followers. It could be podcast listens. Whatever that North Star metric is, it's a unifying metric to drive all behavior toward that one outcome. And then separately, you have vanity metrics. And vanity metrics are metrics that look good on paper, but they don't ultimately mean much. Oftentimes people point to some social media metrics like follower or like counts as vanity metrics. They make us feel good, but they might not drive the business outcomes we want to achieve. So that leads us to this week's project, Get Certified. So you'll find in Google Classroom that there are links to Google Analytics training. You get to earn certificates for beginner and advanced courses. And once you've earned the certificates, turn in a copy and celebrate it on your LinkedIn and social networks. And the second part of this project is an analytics report. And with this, you'll find the instructions in the project brief within Google Classroom. A quick walkthrough of this. Again, Google Analytics, it's about 8 to 10 hours to complete both certificates. You'll find that there is material to read and review, then a quiz at the end, which will end in the certification. And with Google Slides, that's how you'll read and assess a Google Analytics dashboard, and then submit a short slide deck with some answers to some question prompts. Just making sure that you truly understand the concepts and can assess and interpret a Google Analytics dashboard. So you'll find more about this week's project in the project brief in Google Classroom. To recap, what we've learned in this module is how to understand a website analytics dashboard and report on your learnings. And the project is to get certified and to read and assess a dashboard. We did a data overview, a web analytics overview, and talked about some of the theory behind how to tell what's working. If you run into any questions as you're working through this module, please do get in touch with me at help@societyforideas.org. And with that, I'll let you dive into the project. Look forward to seeing what you do.